June next year. So you do have to get these things done well in advance. And the news, I can't remember if it was earlier this week or last week when the Tennessee Adidas deal happened, but typically those things are done within 10 to 11 months before the current contract expires. Obviously, Tennessee is now heading back to Adidas after their deal with Nike is coming to an end. But yeah, the timing's about right. We don't know the details yet. That's what we're going to learn from the Board of Trustees meeting tomorrow that we'll obviously talk about when we have those details. But yes, again, according to David Kleinker, it does seem like South Carolina is headed to the Nike swoosh next year.
It's kind of crazy. Like Tennessee leaves for Adidas, and this, I don't know how this seemingly would play out if it did, but it feels like this kind of just came at the opportune time for South Carolina to jump in and make it happen. So big time.
For one, this is something the fan base has wanted for a very long time.
Yes.
I mean, I've been here since 2022, and even going back to then, I heard about this fan base's displeasure with Nike. Yeah, Under Armour, excuse me. I wish we were with Nike. I wish we were with Nike. For this reason, that reason. The jerseys look like this. They're not doing this. They're not doing that. Yeah. So it's been a long time coming, and public pressure does not always guarantee these kind of things, but you look at Donati and him coming over from TCU, which is a Nike school. I'm forgetting our guy's name that they hired just the other week from UC Riverside.
Wesley Mallett?
Yeah, Wesley Mallett, who also worked a deal with that school and Nike as well. So you had some tie-ins there that made you believe that, okay, this was possible. Now, I think we talked about this with the Tennessee thing the other day. Nike is a company that has a lot of schools, right? So your hope is that the deal you get is strong. It's going to benefit you in a lot of ways. And I really hope, like Tennessee's doing with Adidas, there's an NIL component in there too, where they're going to put forth the initiative to work directly with your athletes and give you some help in that NIL space that we know is so valuable in today's college sports.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting tomorrow when the numbers do come out on the deal that we assume, again, is with Nike from everything that has been reported out there. I do wonder how substantial this has to be. It's got to be, going to Nike alone is a huge, huge deal. And I think that alone doesn't matter what the money is. I feel like that alone is just awesome for your brand to be associated with a company like Nike. But from a financial standpoint, and again, we talk about teams and schools are trying to get every dollar they can because it's so important to have that money in this climate and this economy and in college athletics. But yeah, like a Nike deal, I got to imagine. Again, I don't know off the top of my head what the Under Armour deal was looking like, but I can imagine the Nike deal. It's got to be really game changing.
It's either a deal that Nike gives you that's just significantly better, or through negotiating with Under Armour, they weren't willing to give you what you wanted, and Nike was. And again, we'll learn the details coming up tomorrow, but ideally you would like to be, somewhere in the realm of the 10-year, $10 million type of range probably.
And here's the other thing with Under Armour. I feel like, I don't know. Under Armour still has a handful of schools that are tied to them, but South Carolina is the only SEC school that is still partnered with Under Armour. Yep. So I don't want to say Under Armour's moving out of the big time school space. That's certainly not the case. But from an SEC standpoint, if you're South Carolina, you could look at it we can be the face of Under Armour, because who else is stacking up compared to South Carolina with Under Armour, right? Yeah. There's only so many schools I think you could say are probably up there, maybe a little bit ahead of South Carolina in terms of brand recognition. But for Carolina to go to Nike, they might just be another school at a big company like that. Mm-hmm. But it's something where obviously they probably feel like, hey, the money's right there. Nike's probably better for our school and our programs overall. So it feels like the right move for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, you're not going to get the same kind of deal that Texas and Ohio State and programs like that are going to have, because quite frankly, your brand just isn't quite where theirs is, as of right now. But if you can get, because I think I want to say Tennessee's deal with with Adidas obviously has the baked in NIL component from it, and you get multi-million-dollar per year from the brand itself. And that's kind of, again, what we hope to get out of it. And we'll learn those details and stuff coming up tomorrow, certainly with the Board of Trustees meeting. But I don't think there's anybody that's upset about this move being made, it doesn't seem like.
Now, and here's some more details on the Under Armour deal, just for when we do talk about the Nike deal, like the inner details of it, to kind of compare it to what Under Armour has. So 2016, South Carolina entered a 10-year deal with Under Armour that obviously expires June 30th, 2026. The deal originally included a $2 million signing bonus, $24.5 million in rights fees, an additional $5,000 for baseball, and $44.5 million in product allowance. So valued at about $71.5 million, it was the second most valuable apparel contract in the SEC at the time, and seventh most in college and nationally. So I wonder what that means here with Nike.
Yeah, so you were getting a little less than $8 million annually from that contract. And again, when you look at a program like Notre Dame, that's basically getting about $10 million annually from Under Armour. You would like to be somewhere in that range, with this new Nike deal. So if you can be, 10 years, 80, 90 million, then you're doing better, which again would allot $8 to $9 million a year. Again, we're just kind of throwing numbers out there. We'll get the specifics of this coming up tomorrow. But again, we've heard about this for a little bit, and it is finally happening. And you can go out and buy yourself a whole bunch of new Gamecock apparel with the Nike swoosh on it and stuff like that. And look, we're not all that far removed from high school. Brands matter.
They do.
To 17 and 18-year-old kids, right? Like, as silly as it may seem to some of you that might be listening right now, but whether you have the Nike swoosh or the Under Armour logo or the Adidas logo, all those kind of things can quite literally determine if a kid wants to come to your school or not. There's a reason.
Look at Oregon.
Yeah, there's a reason, Oregon flaunts its Nike influence and with all the different uniforms, stuff like that, because that matters. Does that help you on the field? Absolutely not. But some kids want to go play where they got a lot of uniform combinations and know they're going to have the opportunity to wear some cool shoes and cool clothes and all those kind of things. It matters to kids, and you're now in this larger group of Nike schools that, have that brand, have that identity that hopefully will help you out in the recruiting trail too.
Absolutely. And I really do wonder now, like, what does this mean for the future? Like, one cool thing for Gamecock fans, I would imagine South Carolina would do something like this, because we saw Auburn did this when they switched over from Under Armour to Nike. They would, for all the people that want to get rid of their Under Armour stuff, I would imagine South Carolina would have a mass exodus stuff on sale, like at the facility and stuff. Because Auburn did that a few weeks ago, and you could buy like jerseys of any kind, apparel, like stuff that you just could not get at a normal store.
They'll have to liquidate everything and get it off the shelves as soon as possible. So that will definitely be coming.
Yes, at some point. But in terms of what this means for the future, we'll talk more about this tomorrow, definitely, when we get the finer details of everything. But I mean, do we see like a significant change to South Carolina, the brand as we know it, in terms of like the uniforms and stuff? Like, or we've seen a lot of times where apparel companies take over and we see the same type of uniform be the same. Like Auburn, again, example.
Sure.
Auburn is not changing their uniforms. It's just they're putting the swoosh.
And Auburn has a uniform that is very traditional.
Iconic.
That hasn't really changed much over the years, where Carolina's has. Carolina's changed quite a bit. And even when you look at them from the early days of Under Armour to now, even then it's changed a lot. And we got multiple helmets and all these kind of things. The logo is bigger this year. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that are possible in terms of changing the uniforms that we'll definitely get into tomorrow, because I'm gonna create my own wish list for things that I want Nike to do to South Carolina athletics, because again, you have an opportunity to really change things up, create some new identities, and obviously get to be a part of the biggest sports apparel brand in the entire world.
And making a good first impression, I think, is critical. If you're Nike, like, you could easily do something as simple as, like I said, just put just slap the Nike logo on where the Under Armour logo was and keep it the same pretty much. Obviously, the material will probably be a little bit different.
I feel like when Nike takes over from a former school, they want to make an impact.
In due time, we see this a lot with like Major League Baseball. Ever since Nike took over the MLB in terms of being the main partner to make the uniforms, even with the NBA too, We've seen them keep the same uniforms, obviously, but they'll enhance and maybe even do new uniforms like the City Connects and stuff.
Sure.
So I don't think we'll ever see that necessarily. I'm sure people want the old camo jerseys and stuff, things that Under Armour did in the early 2010s. I don't know if Nike would do that, but I think they got to leave a really good first impression because people have wanted this for so long. But it could easily take one wrong move to really change people's perception of, yeah, was leaving Under Armour the right move? So I think it's going to be the right move for South Carolina, obviously, with the benefits they can get out of this. But it'll really be something that is going to be up for judgment once that first move comes out.
Again, that Board of Trustees meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. We'll follow along with that and talk about the details of the contract when it does ultimately come out. We did hear from coordinators yesterday. We'll talk a little bit about what Mike SHULA had to say about the offense of the North Sellers coming up next as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head, Jack Felcher, Captain Dave on your Thursday on the Game. Tyler Ed here for the mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder with First Palmetto Bank. If you're looking for a mortgage guru, Jacob Crowder has got you covered. He's helped many of our listeners here at the Game, and he can help you too. And we at the Game personally recommend him. Owned and operated right here in the Midlands, Jacob has local decision makers, which means quick and precise processing and underwriting. And if you're looking to make a move, give Jacob a call at 803-719-1005 or email him at jcrowder@firstpalmetto.com. Interest rates have stabilized as well as local housing markets, so now is a good time to buy a house as any. Jacob and First Palmetto Bank have products to help home buyers, and if you're giving consideration to building a home, they have no-nonsense construction loans that fit your needs. Give Jacob a call at 803-719-1005 or email him at jcrowder@firstpalmetto.com. His MLS number is 198-432. First Palmetto Bank is a member of FDIC and an equal housing lender. Welcome back in. It is the Extra Point. No, it's not. It's the halftime show. It's our Ed, Jack Veltri, Captain Dave, along with you here on your Thursday. On the game tomorrow, of course, we're going to be out at the Game Summer Golf Classic, sponsored by Krager Showrooms, formerly known as The Nest over in the Vista. Tea time will be at 9. Registration begins at 7:30. Of course, going to have onion sausages, the mimosa bar from Saki's Wine and Spirits, and Firehouse Subs for lunch, and we hope to see you there. I've been told there's still a spot left. So give Charlie a call at 803-755-2000 and press the number 2 to sign up if you want to take part in the game's Summer Golf Classic, sponsored by Krager Showrooms, formerly The Nest over in the Vista. And we're excited to be out there. That really gets things kicked off for the football season. We'll have week 0 the day after that. And then, again, we'll just be a little over a week out from Carolina, getting things rolling in the Aflac kickoff at Mercedes-Benz against the Virginia Tech Hokies. All right, yesterday we heard from the coordinators, and we'll go ahead and just get this out of the way. Yes, we knew that Mike Shula was going to be asked right off the jump about the origins of the dump, the fake poop that has gone viral that Lenora Sellers mentioned the other day. Cut number 1 here, Dave. Here is Coach Shula giving the background on the dump.
That's the first question, huh? A long time ago, actually, there's a really good friend of mine, a line coach that won 2 Super Bowls and at least 1 national championship. He would always use that phrase when kind of players weren't doing kind of what they've been asked to do. It's kind of like, right on your desk or whatever. So kind of carried, I thought that was kind of funny and kind of carried that with me. Got to the Giants, and I said it, I think I said it in that room right there, and sure enough, the next day there was that object right on my desk. Eli, man, you can thank Eli for that. Eli bought it. So, and then from there, I think it got to the Bills. The guys and I was in an office with the pro personnel staff of the Bills, who are the coolest pro personnel guys in the whole NFL. So they actually texted me when they heard it yesterday. But yeah, so Eli took it and ran with it.
Eli Manning. Eli Manning's the culprit. He's the one that got it for him. I didn't think Shula was going to be the guy to walk into a Spencer Gifts and see that and buy it. I knew it had to have been gifted at some point.
Yeah, I would have been, because again, the little we know about Mike Shula from his time being here at South Carolina, he's not the most outgoing person, it seems like. He seems very, kind of just, again, he's good in press conferences and whatnot, but yeah, he doesn't really seem like that kind of guy. So, the fact that Eli Manning gave it to him, everything goes back to the Mannings, huh? Everything in this conference revolves around the Mannings, it seems like. So
the most important family in football, and little did we know that it would be Uncle Eli as the culprit for why Shula had that he is now motivating these quarterbacks with here at South Carolina. A more important question was also asked yesterday of where exactly he's going to call the games from. Cut number 4 here, Dave. This is Coach Shula telling us where he'll be on game days.
Yeah, probably going to be on the field, I think. I've been kind of leaning that way as all along, but, and I think I can't remember if you guys asked me earlier, maybe in the off season, but I think there's pluses and minuses to both. I think being down there with the quarterbacks, with Norris will be good. I think, and also I've got really good guys. We've got a really good offensive staff, and really good staff in general, but guys that'll, you can count on the information from upstairs and fast information, and guys that have cool heads and that are smart and fast thinkers. So that's very important to me to be able to get that information if I need it. The use of the iPads the last couple of years are really advantageous as well, but you can't get to those usually until after the series, unless there's a timeout.
So it makes a lot of sense because, again, that's where he was a year ago, and you have those one-on-ones with Sellers, and it's not that he couldn't, talk to him through a headset if he was up in the booth, but he wants that physical, sitting basically from me to you, looking at the iPad or whatever and saying, hey, here's what happened, what'd you see here, here's what we can change on the next drive, and those kind of things. That's obviously important to Mike Shula, and as he alluded to, he's got eyes in the sky, right? He's going to have guys up in the booth that are telling him what he needs to know in terms of, what the defense is doing, spacing, schemes, all those kind of things. So he'll have everything that he needs, but he just feels like he'll probably be more comfortable down there on the sidelines.
I think it's a good move for him. I think last year you have that continuity continuing into this year where last year he was, and again, going back to the bowl game, I think he was on the field for that. So when he was the offensive coordinator, the interim one, well, right before he was named the full-time duties of having the OC role. But, yeah, so the continuity continues from last year to this year. The interesting thing is he had, when he was in the NFL as a coordinator, he was always up in the coach's booth, right? And when he was a quarterback's coach or an assistant, wherever he was last year, anywhere in the NFL or whatever, he was on the sideline. So it's like going into this upcoming season, he's not in the booth. So that's going to be kind of a little bit different, I think. But again, having Lenore Sellers right there, being able to go to him, again, he trusts the guys that are upstairs. I think it's something that will probably work out pretty well for him.
I mean, he could always change his mind in the middle of the season.
If something's not working, he could always change.
He
but
coaches the first couple of games, like, I don't like this, then he can just go up to the booth. Like, it's not like you're locked into your decision for the entire season.
Yeah, and again, we see coordinators on the field. We see this a lot of time with defense and stuff. Clayton White's always been on the field for South Carolina, and maybe it's just a comfortability thing. Maybe it's easier to see from a bird's eye view upstairs of all the personnel on the field and stuff. You can only see so much from the sideline, but I feel like for what he said about being right there for Lenore and stuff and the other quarterbacks and being around the offense on the field will probably work out best for him.
I went to the spring game and I sat in the far end zone right there, basically at field level, and I remember thinking, I'm like, I don't know how these guys can call a game from the sidelines because you don't have any
you can't
perception
see, really.
Or you can't see a lot of things, and especially things happening on the far end of the field that's being blocked by other players. It takes a special type of mind to do that Shula seems comfortable with.
The other thing he mentioned yesterday was the fact that the iPads, that seems to really help a lot. That's something that's been beneficial for him. But again, you can't really see a ton, I don't feel like, from being on the sideline. I guess Shula can to a point where it's just, if it were a problem, he'd be up in the booth. But obviously it's not. So
do you remember when they used to have to print the sheets out to have on the sideline so you could get a view of whatever happened on the last drive? Like, they'd have printed sheets that they would be flipping through. This was years ago. We've been doing the iPad service tablet for a while now, but back in the day, and I don't know
technology.
I don't know if they had an actual printer down there or if somebody was in the one of the offices printing things off between drives, but it used to be they would have actual printed or laminated sheets to show what happened. And that's what the quarterbacks and coaches would sit and look at. Like, all right, there's, how they lined up on this play or whatever. And it was an actual physical piece of paper.
Interesting.
We've come a long way.
Wow. Yeah. Did not know that. Again, it shows how young I am, but to sum it up, I do think this is going to work out well for Carolina. Again, they could always switch it if they need to, but again, you have the right eyes in the sky. Shula will be able to get the info that he needs and make it work.
You also asked him about how different the offense might look, and he didn't really give any specifics to an answer. He said y'all might actually know more than he would if it does look any different, but we were kind of debating earlier what could be different. And one thing, and he kind of alluded to it for a moment of playing faster, maybe it's tempo. Because, again,
tempo would be interesting.
Dow Loggins' offenses were pretty middle of the road with what the pacing was and how fast they were trying to go. So maybe, and look, when you have a quarterback that's mobile like Sellers, playing tempo offenses can certainly benefit them. So maybe that's something that could be on the horizon. He's not going to give that away in the press conference, obviously, but maybe against Virginia Tech we see them play a little bit faster than they did under Dow Loggins.
See, this would be very interesting because you go back to last year, there were so many times where teams would either fake injuries or take their sweet time to get players onto the field and substitute them in. This was seen in the Illinois game last year in the bowl game, and obviously Shane Beamer was not happy about that. We saw it in the Ole Miss game where you have Ole Miss who notoriously would, seemingly fake injuries throughout a game to kind of slow things down. There's nothing you can really do about that, although rules are obviously changing on that now.
Right.
I will say for South Carolina, maybe in some ways it does benefit them to play faster. Maybe not necessarily go no huddle offense, but have a little bit more urgency out there to speed things up and kind of catch guys off guard.
Well, and it prevents defenses from substituting, and there's certainly a benefit to that. Now, again, you're going to have to substitute it yourself at some point, so you're going to have to obviously play that game well. But that's kind of, I really think from a schematic standpoint, it's probably going to look largely the same. I don't
Yeah.
I don't expect them going out there and suddenly running the air raid or something along those lines.
No,
You know what I mean?
No, I think we're going to see, hopefully we see, in terms of making Sellers, like, continue his development and whatnot, hopefully we see some of what worked best for him last year. We've talked about the scrambling and stuff. That's going to, trying to get him more passing, I think. But in terms of what he could do this year, I think you definitely want to add a little bit of your own flavor. But again, keep what worked so well last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, a little bit of Shula from yesterday. We'll get to some Clayton White stuff a little bit later on in the show. But coming up next, we're making predictions on statistics that we think South Carolina can achieve this upcoming year. We'll dive into those coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Veltri, Captain Dave, along with you on your Thursday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show presented by the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Tyler Head, Jack Veltri, Captain Dave along with you here on your Thursday on the game. Tonight, Carolina Calls makes its return. First one of the new season with Coach Beamer, 7 o'clock, which you can listen to right here on the game. I'm hoping there will be a television at Backstreet's Grill with the Little League game on, because I know Beamer's going to want to watch that, as I'm sure many people sitting there listening to him will, because that's going to be happening at the same time.
It's at 7 tonight?
So that's 7 tonight.
And they're playing Nevada, right?
Playing Nevada, rematch of the other day.
Yeah, so I would imagine it'll be on. They typically have ESPN on the 3 or 4 TVs they have there, and I'm sure Beamer will be watching intently. So maybe that's why this got moved to 7 o'clock.
Maybe so. Well, you'd think you'd want to have it earlier so you could get home to watch the game.
Yeah, but he's got meetings and stuff.
Yeah,
while he's at Backstreets, he could probably just look it over a little bit and watch it. So,
which again, we'll get into that in a moment. Another crazy game for those guys last night as they continue on and keep their hopes alive. But I wanted to get into this as, again, we're 10 days out, still making predictions and anticipation of what this season's going to be. And I wanted us to make some stat predictions of things we expect to happen this upcoming year. We'll kind of go back and forth here. I'll start off where I think I have a lot of confidence in Lenore Seller's ability to develop in all parts as a quarterback, but I really think and hope that the turnovers will be fixed this upcoming year, because he threw 7 interceptions, put the ball on the ground 11 times, lost 6 of them, which was among the worst in the country. I'm expecting him to have no more than 8 turnovers in total this upcoming year. So maybe 5 interceptions and 3 fumbles. I could live with that. It's not going to be a 0. That's just not how football works. He's going to turn over a couple times, but if you can cut that number in almost half and have no more than 8, I'll feel okay about that.
I'm with you on that. I think it's a really good take right there and a good stat prediction for the year. I'm going to kind of stay along the same lines there in terms of what it could look like for this year in terms of Sellers and the offense. I think the sack numbers go down a bit. I think we're going to look at a team that is probably down to about 25 to 30 sacks this year. Now, it's not saying much necessarily, since I feel like Sellers last year was sacked 33 times.
Yeah.
Now, that number easily could have been a lot more. The offensive line blocking was hit or miss. I feel like last year there were some times where it was really good, but how much of that had to do with Sellers avoiding pressure? Now the offensive line did allow 41 sacks last year, so maybe getting it down to that number doesn't seem like much, but in the grand scheme of things, I think it would make a big difference.
Yeah, and we talked about this the other day. I have a lot of hope and faith that both Josiah Thompson and Casey Henry, assuming he's the right tackle, because that's not guaranteed, but if they are, that the year of experience they had last year will prove to be very valuable for them in year number 2. Because, again, Josiah Thompson was a true freshman, and you're playing what is quite literally maybe the hardest spot on the entire football field, left tackle, that he obviously had his ups and downs with. And Casey Henry, despite being around for a couple years, had been injured a lot. And he had never gotten a full season, fully healthy, that he got a year ago. So you almost kind of count that as a freshman type of season for him. So I hope those guys, learning what they did a year ago, having another season of off-season development, can make big strides. And look, they're going to give up sacks. It's not going to be, a single-digit number, but especially considering the pass rushers you faced this year. But, yeah, if you can be more down in that range, I can live with that, and I think you can be very successful as a team.
Yeah, most definitely. Now, what else do you have in terms of your predictions?
So I have Nick Harbor and Mazio Bennett combining for over 1,200 yards and 15 total touchdowns. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say with confidence that, hey, one of these guys is going to have 1,000 yards this year. That'd be great if they did, but 1,000 yards is very hard, right? That is a hard accomplishment to achieve, and I feel as though the ball is going to get spread around a lot. You've got capable tight ends. You've got guys in the backfield that can catch. You've obviously got a ton of freshman wide receivers going to be fighting for playing time. So it's not going to be like, hey, Sellers dropping back. Okay, he's going to throw it to Harbor every single time. You're going to have to fight for your reps, obviously. But I look at what those two guys did a year ago. Obviously, Mazio Bennett coming in as a true freshman, making an impact. Harbor, kind of getting his wheels going towards the end of last year. I expect both those guys to be the leaders of this wide receiver room and have a combined really, really strong year.
If you can get those guys, doesn't matter how you get to 1,200 yards, if you're getting 1,200 yards out of those two receivers, think about last year. They probably got a little bit over 700 yards receiving. We're talking about, because again, they each had about 300, in that 300-yard range. with a few touchdowns to go with it. If they can get to about 1,200 right there, I mean, that's great. That is great. Maybe that means Nick Harbor has 800 yards and Mazio Ben has 400. I think you like a little bit more even split, but like if one of those guys has a breakout year and the other follows right behind him, I think it's very big going into the year.
What's the next one for you?
Next one for me, I'm going to go with the defensive side of the ball. And look, over the last few years in the Shane Beamer era, safeties and defensive backs have typically led the way in a lot of the tackling categories. Nicky Manwari, who's no longer at South Carolina now, but over the last 3 years, he's been very good at making those big plays, that cleaning up the big plays at the end and getting those tackles. So it'd be easy to say someone like a safety, like a DQ Smith or Peyton Williams, maybe leads the team in tackles. I'm going to go with the linebacker here. I'm going to go Fred J.R. Johnson to lead the team in tackles this year.
Is he the guy, like the Stewart stuff speaks for itself. We don't really have to hype that up, but I feel like JR might be the guy that maybe we've hyped up the most on defense this offseason because, physically looks the part. Debo was in here the other day talking about, oh, this dude, he's a guy, man, watch out for him. He talked about last week with you guys in the media that, he thinks he's very reminiscent of a Bam Martin Scott, who, again, made a big impact over the last couple of years. Like, I'm really excited to see this guy finally get a lot of snaps on the field.
And I think a lot of the hype stems from what we heard going into the bowl game, right? The prep. Like, all we heard about was the consistent question was, all right, who's the guy that we need to keep an eye on for next year with so many of these guys leaving on defense? The consistent answer was J.R. Johnson, like every single time. And it got to a point where we were just talking to him in bowl prep, and he's like, yeah, all these guys are hyping up, and he feels like he can go out there and be that next guy to step up and replace what they're losing with Bam Martin, Scott, Debo, and Demetrius Knight. A lot of snaps, and you'll have Sean Murphy and J.O. to kind of help fill those roles, but I feel like we're going to see a really big season out of Fred.
My last one is I expect Oscar Attaway to double his number of carries from a year ago. 77 was his total as the second back behind Rocket Sanders. Obviously, Sanders has gone to the NFL now. You thought you were going to have Rasul Faison. That's not looking like it's going to be the case. I think Oscar Attaway is going to carry a bulk of the load here, reminiscent to about the 60% of carries of all running backs that Rocket Sanders got last year. So, you're going to be somewhere probably in the 150 range, I believe, in terms of carries for Oscar.
And that would be really good to see out of him if that is, again, the case. Again, we don't know what's going to look like with Faison and stuff, but they're preparing like he's going to be playing week one. Again, they just don't have an answer as they're waiting in line to see what happens. But that feels like a very good one. My last prediction for stats going into the year, I think it's going to be something with the kicking. I think, number one, I think it's more like a prediction just in general. I think Mason Love's going to win the kicker job, and I think he will ultimately pull double duty with kicking and punting. But I think he's going to kick at about an 80% or better clip this season. Now, last year, Alex Herrera, who struggled a little bit, I think he caught a little bit more flack than he deserved, went 15 of 21 on field goals for a 71.4% clip. So I think 80% would be really, really good for Mason Love in his first year as a starter.
I hope all the misses that he has are
not
when you're
meaningful.
Already up by a lot of points and inconsequential moments, not, missing key kicks against Alabama when you're trying to tie the game or win or something along those lines.
But again, just as well as I do that there's going to come multiple moments throughout the season where a big kick is going to be required, and he's going to have to make it.
Listen, everybody loves a kicker until they miss their first kick.
Mm-hmm.
Then the conversation
Kickers
shifts.
get so much hate that they probably don't deserve. But again, it's all the pressure in the world. It's tough. And again, none of these guys have kicked in front of they haven't kicked in a game before. So it's going to be really interesting to see how it all shakes out for the specialists this year.
You're in a rare situation where 2 years in a row, whoever your kicker is this year, coupled with Alex Herrera a year ago, both entered the season with zero experience actually kicking a field goal in a game. Did concern me for Herrera last year. Again, he was okay. Was not spectacular.
He had the big
means.
kick against Clemson.
Yeah,
but he had a lot of misses too.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to have the same weariness going into this year for whoever wins that job, whether it's Mason Love or whoever, Alex Joyce, Peyton Argent.
Yeah.
I'm leaving out one.
Yeah, you got William Joyce. Peyton Argent. You have Max Kelly.
Max Kelly, that's right.
Yeah,
so whoever wins the job, I hope your prediction's right.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
That would be big for South Carolina.
Arkansas has a new policy when it comes to letting fans storm the field. Will it work? Is it smart? Will other programs start doing this too? We'll discuss that coming up next as a wrap-up hour number one of the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Captain Dave on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, Captain Dave, along with you here on your Thursday on the game. You know, last year, Jack, at Williams-Brice Stadium, when Carolina beat Texas A&M, I had never witnessed a field storming before, and that was so cool. I sat up there in the press box and just took videos of it for several minutes, just kind of taking it all in, because it's one of the things that makes college sports so funny and so unique. You know, if if the Saints were to beat the Chiefs this year in New Orleans, I don't even know if they're playing in New Orleans this year, you know, the Saints fans can't storm the field. You know, if the Rockies beat the Yankees, well, the Rockies 5 fans.
Yeah. The Rockies already beat the Yankees once this year. So.
Well, but their fans didn't storm the field.
No.
You know what I mean?
Maybe back like the 70s or the 60s when that was normal.
Those things only really happen in college sports now. And, you know, from a liability standpoint, obviously conferences want to try and you know, grab hold of this, not let it get out of hand. So the SEC at Media Days a month ago did announce that instead of the escalating fees for every offense, it's now going to be a flat $500,000 fee every time you violate field or court storming. Arkansas is trying to quell them from getting in trouble with a potential of a future field rush, which they did last year against Tennessee when they beat what was then a number 7 or 8 team in the country, you know, out there in Fayetteville. So now they're implementing a clock. So if Arkansas has upset a team and they feel the fans are going to storm the field, there will be a clock that gets put on the scoreboard that counts down from 3 minutes. And at the end of the 3 minutes, you can storm the field. This allows the opposing team to get their players, coaches, all their equipment off the field, so you don't run into, you know, players getting physical with fans and those kind of things, which does happen, unfortunately, when it comes to field stormings. My question is, are people going to listen? Will people actually adhere to this rule when they're all juiced up and ready to run on the field?
When we spoke about this earlier this morning, Wes had a really good way of looking at this of you got to hype it up, right?
Yes.
You got to give people a reason to listen, right? Like for instance, last year when South Carolina stormed the field against Texas A&M, you have the PA guy like, fans, please don't storm the field. Like, and then they have the I don't know the exact verbiage and wording of it, but you had the SEC mandated rules of not storming the field pop up on the Jumbotron.
Which the school has to do that.
Yes, the school has to do that, which I'm assuming. I mean, again, with this, I don't know if they would put that up there again, but I think you have to be explicit in your words, like, hey, fans, you know, hold off for 3 minutes. Let this countdown go, and then you can storm the field. I don't know what Arkansas's, like, I don't know, not theme song, but like their song, right? Like South Carolina's 2001.
Yeah.
Can you imagine South Carolina doing this 3-minute countdown? You have Sandstorm blaring for 3 minutes. You have the normal version, you have the remix, all that stuff. And then at 0, everyone goes on the field. Like, that would be kind of sick, to be honest. I think that's something that would really entice people to do it.
They should get Red Hat Guy to do the countdown. You know, the guy that stands out there on the field during TV timeouts and has his little clock, which those breaks just keep getting longer and longer and longer.
Yeah.
They should have him stand at the 50 with the little clock, and he's just rotating it around.
I think this would be something that I'm interested to see how it goes. The other thing is, if it's a 3-minute countdown and whatnot, like, does that avoid the $500,000 fine?
From what Wes told us, apparently so.
Which is why haven't teams been doing that for years now?
I imagine more are going to start probably trying to do this. And he brought up Missouri. I forget who they beat in basketball this year, but Dennis Gates grabbed the microphone with a couple seconds left. He's like, hey guys, please let us, you know, allow the other team to get off the field. Then you can come on the court.
Exactly.
Because you're not going to prevent people from doing this, right?
No, they're going to do it.
Watching the security team last year when they're Yellow Jackets, you know, God, maybe there was 100 of them,
but
then maybe I'm being generous with that, but they're not stopping. They can do their little, you know, hand holding, connected arms things as much as they want. If people want to get on that field, they're going to get on that field.
They're South Carolina security is pretty good about preventing things from like that from happening normally. However, there are certain circumstances where Tennessee 3 years ago, I remember that was just insanity. Like, you were not stopping a herd of thousands and thousands of people from jumping on the field.
The LSU game last year,
people were ready to do it.
They were piling up at the hedges, ready to storm. If, you know, it would have taken overtime if Ferrer makes that field goal more likely than not. But, I mean, there's anticipation with those last couple minutes, like, hey, we're going to do this. And obviously it dissipated when you lost the game. But when the crowd makes up their mind, and there's no clear cut win that's defined as field storming worthy. Yes, if you upset the number 1 or number 2 team, that's going to happen. But like, where do you stop, right? For Carolina fans, they felt justified doing it against A&M last year, which I get. Top 10 team, hadn't beat a ranked team in a couple years. But it's like, okay, would Arkansas feel good if they beat like a number 11 Notre Dame or something like that?
Notre Dame is number 6 right now.
But like Notre Dame could lose in week 1 to Miami.
That's the thing. But if Notre Dame is coming in there undefeated and whatnot, it's late September. It's a 12 o'clock game.
Or is just the brand of Notre Dame enough, no matter what the record is?
And Notre Dame, keep in mind, Notre Dame played for a national championship last year.
They did.
Arkansas is not anywhere near that. So that's an upset right there. The only other game I could think of that they could potentially storm the field for would be A&M. But like, they play Texas on the road. They play LSU on the road.
Yep.
Missouri, I mean, they're not going to be storming the field for that. So not many opportunities to do it this year, but I'm interested to see what this looks like. And is this just for football?
I imagine you'd have something for basketball too.
Yeah.
Because it's a good idea.
It could be cool.
Yeah, I agree with Wes. Hype it up, have a DJ.
Avoid the fine all you can.
Yeah, so we'll see if that works for Arkansas. 1 hour in the book, 2 more hours to go. It's halftime show. Tyler, Jack, and Dave on your Thursday on the game.
Welcome back in. Jack Velcher here. Tyler Head is somewhere. They see me rolling. They hate. Nah, just joking. He's rolling in here right now, getting ready to go. And, so it's been good filling in for Bill Gunner, who we hope is back here hopefully soon. But, Tyler, welcome back. Happy to have you filling in.
It sometimes can take longer than you expect, but that's a good thing about having a co-host. Is you can
I'm here
fill
for you,
the
man.
air.
I'm here for you. So.
I always come out and look at the clock. I'm like, oh, it took longer than I thought. But here we are, hour number 2, halftime show. Sorry, Jack Veltri and Captain Dave along with you here on your Thursday again. Tomorrow, looking forward to being out there at Charlotte Golf Club for the Game Summer Golf Classic, sponsored by Krager Showrooms, formerly known as The Nest over in the Vista. So we got to some of the Mike SHULA stuff there in the last hour. We'll get to some Clayton White here now, and this goes back to something that we did talk about a little bit yesterday, given the news that George Wilson is going to be out for the foreseeable future. We don't have a timetable, but it certainly doesn't sound good. Cut 19, Dave. This is Coach White talking about the edge injuries that are unfortunately piling up in that room.
Yeah, definitely. Unfortunate things have happened in the edge room where our guys have, it's been some very freak injuries. Nothing combative, but just a lot of stuff that happens. But as far as trying to make sure our guys, we still have Dylan, we still have BT, we still have guys that are really good players. But obviously, losing the depth is gonna, it hurts you down the line in regards to practice and stuff like that. But trying to replace that stuff from last year, it's a brand new year, so we're trying to make sure that everyone is involved. It's not just the edge room that gets sacks. It's obviously the D tackles, linebackers, DBs.
So, again, this is coming off the news that George Wilson is going to be out for a while. By the way, quick side note, when did we stop calling them defensive ends? When did edge become just the accepted verbiage?
Definitely over at least the last 3 or so years, I feel like. I mean,
yeah.
And in grammar sense, I'm always confused whether it's all caps edge, like when you write it out, you do it in all caps, or it's. I've seen a lot of people do it in just lowercase lately, and it's like, I don't know.
Well, like when you have a position that's you're using the abbreviation, like quarterback, you capitalize the Q, you capitalize the B, linebacker, LB. Like there really aren't any other ones where you're writing out the entire word more often than not. So it lends me to think that you would lowercase the last 3 letters, but at the same time, when you're like looking at a depth chart, everything else is all caps. So I don't know.
So I don't know. I go back and forth on what's right. Sometimes I'll just put edge rusher, but I don't know. I don't know what happened to defensive.
Maybe
end.
like ER. Wouldn't that be ER?
Yeah, and I've seen South Carolina actually do that on the roster for guys. I think like for someone like George Wilson, they'll put him down as ER, which is something I have not seen that before. So that's definitely new for this year.
So you obviously have the injury to him. Jaylen Brown, going back to the spring, is out, and he's somebody that he was a highly touted guy coming out of high school, and we thought could have a big impact. And then as well, you have Kobe Saki Pra, KSP. I'll just call him that.
KSP.
One of the freshmen coming in. So again, you're not completely decimated yet, but you go into the season kind of at like -3. Already to the start. So, we know Dylan Stewart's going to be on the field pretty much every single play. Is it a rotation between BTJ, Desu, JT Gear? Like how's this going to work out? How much are you going to use Clowney? Those kind of guys. We'll see. But you're obviously not off to the best start with that room right now, injury-wise.
I feel like this probably affects we heard South Carolina talk about so many times last year, their ability to do quote-unquote hockey shifts, where they could rotate guys in and out. And the good thing for South Carolina is, even with all the guys they've lost, I think they're fine because they have Dylan Stewart on one side, and he is a wrecking ball in his own right and someone that South Carolina can depend on like heavily throughout the year. Then it's the other side where you have to figure out, okay, BT, Desu, JT Gear, guys like that. I think that's enough talent right there. And Damon Clowney's another one. I think you could probably group with those guys.
Yeah.
You feel pretty good about those guys. But again, can you have the hockey shifts that we talked about so much last year, that Clayton White and the others talked about? You have the other freshmen in there, like Jaquavius Dodd is someone, Anthony Addison. How do those guys figure in? Seems like they definitely could in some way. Yeah,
and again, you may have to just end up using them because you don't have the depth that you thought you were going to have coming into this season. He was also asked a very sly question, cut number 16. here, Dave, on if all the starters have been set and if we know who's playing where yet.
Yes, we always keep the competition open up to the last minute. We have some positions where we're still trying to battle some things out, but for the most part, we feel really good at where guys are. Guys, come back off a little knickknacks, injuries here and there, but I think we're all set, excited.
I was hoping he was going to give us the depth chart. Unfortunately, not.
No, they've been very coy about that stuff.
I feel like though we can kind of already have a pretty good idea of who the presumed starters are going to be. So let's start at edge. Dylan Stewart, duh. I imagine BTJ, though JT Gear did start last year in game number 1.
He did, and again, it was what, him and Kyle Kennard.
And again, we had no idea Stewart was going to explode like that in game number 1.
Yeah.
So I get it. You went with a guy with more experience. So I guess you could debate. Maybe it's Gear. Maybe it's Brian Thomas Jr. But to me, it's got to be BTJ.
I like the BTJ nickname now. Did you come up with that? Yeah. I haven't heard anyone else call him that.
I can't believe nobody's set it up to this point.
I think you got to trademark that, man, or put that on a shirt.
Can I trademark somebody else's name with that? How does that work?
Can you get like a little bit of a percentage, like 10% of the
maybe? I'll
T-shirt.
I'll see if I can work out a deal with him. But that's my preferred way to refer to him.
We got to get him on here again for like Garn Trust or whatever, and like pitch that to him. But I'd be shocked if Brian Thomas Jr. is not starting out there game 1. He's waited his turn for a while now to be the guy, and I feel like he'll still be overshadowed by Dylan Stewart this year. But one of the hot takes we had last week on Gamecock Central, go ahead and check it out, was Brian Thomas Jr. having more sacks than Dylan Stewart this year. I bought it. I think it's very, very plausible because you look at Dylan Stewart and how much pressure is going to be put on him this year. Well, not pressure, but how much attention is going to be put on him this year from offensive lines and stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe the plays go away from him. That lends itself well to a guy like BTJ to step up and be that guy that takes on those sacks.
So you got those two guys at edge, and we're going to name more than 11 here because we know they're going to switch up their schemes. You're going to have different linebackers on the field at times, different amount of guys up front. So we'll kind of settle on 3 guys on the interior. I think we can agree that Nick Baird is one of them.
That's got to be one of them. I would imagine he's probably a captain too for South Carolina this year.
Right. Are we thinking the same thing for the other 2?
I think Brownlow Dindy. We've heard Clayton talked about him a lot yesterday. Beamer's talked about him. I feel pretty good about him. I think the third one, where are you going with this?
I'm going to go Goodwine.
I was going to go Goodwine too.
Makes the most sense to me.
I was going to go Goodwine too. You want to go with your veteran guys, I think, in that room to lead the way. And, of course, I think South Carolina's going to rotate guys in and out and stuff.
And Goodwine rotated in last year.
Exactly. But he wasn't a predominant starter in that group that was led by a lot of guys who are now in the NFL.
Yeah, and then that to me, again, they won't all 3 run on the field at the same time a lot, but that's kind of my thought on who the interior 3 will be mainly this upcoming season. And again, can Devontae Miles and Troy Pikes earn some time? Certainly. Xavier Hardy, we'll see. But those are kind of my 3. Like, this is your defensive line more often than not.
Linebackers, I feel like it's pretty easy. I feel like it's probably your Justin Okoronkwo, your Sean Murphy, and your Fred Johnsons. I think those 3 are your top 3 that are going to be starting. Well, I maybe they'll have 2 stars, but those will be your top 3 linebackers this year. Yeah, Wes and Chris have brought up don't forget about a guy like Jaron Willis who's been around for a while. He certainly get on the field, but I think until proven otherwise, just based off what we've heard and what we've seen so far this season, it seems like JR, Fred, whatever we're going to call him, Sean Murphy and Justin Okoronkwo are definitely your 3 guys in the middle of your defense. The secondary is where it gets interesting. DQ Smith. Going to be back for his 4th year as a starter. No question. Maybe he slides into that Nicky Minwari spot on the field. Jalen Kilgore at nickel. Yep. Then that leaves you with Judge Coyer at DB. You have, one other DB spot open and then the other safety spot. So I guess we're probably in agreement on the guys I just mentioned that are going to be starters. Yeah. But what about the DB spot and then the other safety spots? So I think the other DB spot's definitely Brandon Cisse. Yeah. So you're going to have Judge Collier on one side, Brandon Cisse on the other. It is interesting that, and Clayton White mentioned this yesterday, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, that Cisse can spell Kilgore at nickel if he needs to. Yeah. It doesn't sound like that is the main plan. No. But hey, Kilgore gets dinged up, boom, there goes Cisse. Because he did that when he was at NC State. But it sounds like he's primarily going to be a cornerback this upcoming season.
As far as the other safety spot, I mean, I lean towards Peyton Williams.
Yeah.
Just because he was the guy behind Nicky last year.
Yeah.
And he played fine.
He played good. I mean, I think he would probably be, he's got to be the favorite to win that job. But don't forget about a guy like Gerald Kilgore, who has had seemingly a really nice
had a pick this past weekend.
He had a really nice pick this past weekend. Nice fall camp. The thing that Clayton did say the other day when we talked with him, I think this was in regards to those DBs in secondary, you're going to see a lot of those guys play this year.
Yeah.
And I think like David Busey, I think we could see play a lot this year. Peyton Williams will play certainly a ton this year, I would imagine. But Gerald Kilgore is another guy that I would probably throw in there, too, as someone that we could definitely see. And Vicari Swain, too.
Vicari Swain, yep. Can't forget about him.
Vicari I feel like gets swept under the rug a little bit. And I think he's someone that we saw what he did in like the Kentucky game last year. Very critical in that game. I don't think he'll be starting right out of the gate, but DB needs some depth in there. He's pretty good.
He's one of those guys you feel like he's just so athletically talented. You got to find a way to get him on the field at some point. And again, that Kentucky game is what really kind of stood out with the way that he were using him there. And yeah, we're definitely going to see him on the field some. Like Busey's a great special teams guy.
Yeah. That's the thing about these guys. Kilgore plays special teams.
Yeah.
Busey.
And that's, for Busey coming in last year as a freshman, that was a way of getting on the field. And now how do they look at what you did on special teams, say, hey, maybe we can trust you to do some more stuff on defense? We'll have to see. But you definitely know that he's going to have an impact in that third phase of the game, if nothing else.
Yeah, which is definitely what you want to see. Again, I think they're going to have a nice amount of options out there in the secondary this year. It's just, I think the secondary is that one spot where they really didn't lose a ton. I mean, Odie Fortune, Nicky Minwari, obviously big name guys that you lost, but compared to the other groups where you lose all your linebackers, you lose all your defensive line pretty much, you lose Kyle Kennard. I feel like the secondary is that one area where it's like you retained a lot.
One more thing real quick here before we go to the break. Cut number 21, you asked Clayton White, like you did Mike Shula, what could look different on the defense this year?
Well, it's hard to tell. Obviously watching us in scrimmages, watching us play, feel like a very strong defense for us. Just our size, we're a lot bigger for us if you just go pound for pound what we weighed last year and how strong we were in the weight room. So that's kind of the feeling that I have right now. But hopefully we're still a flying around defense, making plays, opportunistic, getting the ball back to our quarterback, giving them multiple opportunities to go score points. That's really our ultimate goal, and keep points off the board.
Like the scheme itself is not going to change. You're not going to do anything from a schematic standpoint that I think is very different. I think your rotations, like we talked about, probably going to look a little bit different just because of the depth that you have. But other than that, I would imagine probably pretty much in line, just minus the personnel what you had last year.
Yeah, the personnel is going to be the biggest difference for this team, no doubt, going into this year. You got to replace so many starters on this defense. But again, what you did last year worked so well. Maybe enhance it a little bit and try to get more out of those guys. That would probably be the only thing I would say that could be different going into this year.
We'll talk more defense a little bit later on in the show. But coming up next, Andy Staples of On3 has put out his 10 bold predictions for the 2025 college football season. We'll go through those and give our thoughts and see which ones might actually come true as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head, Jack Velcher, Captain Dave on your Thursday, presented by the Men's Clinic for South Carolina here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Captain Dave along with you on your Thursday here on the game. Looks like the sun has finally come out, so that's nice to see. We are talking about college football as we are a little over a week away from Carolina getting their games rolling. A little under 48 hours now. This time Saturday, Iowa State and Kansas State will be playing.
Close.
We'll dive into that matchup specifically a little bit more tomorrow and everything happening else with week 0. But college football will be officially underway for 2025. Andy Staples of On3 put out his list. He started calling his shot, my shot, 10 bold predictions for the 2025 college football season. I want to go through each one of these and see if we agree with old Andy on what he deems to be bold predictions for 2025. And we'll start off with the team that's made more headlines than anybody and also won more national championships than anybody this week alone, the Auburn Tigers. He says, get your jokes off now. Auburn is going to win at least 9 games this upcoming season. That's pretty bold.
That's very bold. That's a good way to start it off. I'm going to respectfully disagree here. I just don't see it. I think Auburn is an absolute dumpster fire right now. And look, all it takes is one win to change a lot of people's minds on what this team could be like going into the year. Number one, they don't seem to have a grasp of who their quarterback's going to be because they plan to play all 3 quarterbacks in the Baylor game next Friday night. I just don't. I mean, again, they have way too many cooks in the kitchen with a first down play caller, a second down play caller, a third down play caller, a fourth down play caller. What are we talking about here? Pick one quarterback, pick one play caller, and go from there. If you can't decide that, then I don't. What are you doing?
I've lost a lot of belief in Hugh Freeze as a head coach. When he came to Auburn, I did think like, hey, man, this is a guy that he had a pretty good run at Ole Miss. You know, he may be the one that kind of gets Auburn back into that SEC championship, national championship conversation. And in 2 years, I've seen no evidence of that.
No.
He believed he could turn Peyton Thorne into a great quarterback. Didn't happen. Defense questionable at times. Just a whole lot of bad things have happened in his first 2 years there, where he's on the hot seat this year. I will say this, though, because this happens every other year where Auburn gets Georgia and Alabama at home at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Now, if those respective games were being played in Sanford and Bryant-Denny Stadium, I'd say there's no chance Auburn has to win either one of these games. But let's think about back to 2 years ago where Auburn had Georgia on the ropes. It took a Brock Bowers long touchdown for them to win that game, for Georgia to, and keep their undefeated streak alive. Later on that year, they had Alabama dead to rights, 4th and 31, and it took a miracle, to win that game. Weird things happen on the plains. So I'm not going to agree with it, but I could see the pathway of how that might happen, given the fact that their 2 biggest games do come at home.
But I'm telling you, man, this team could be dead in the water after the first month of the year. I mean, they go to Baylor, they get Ball State, they get South Alabama. You imagine they win those games. Auburn has lost games that they should not lose in years past. But it's the end of the month where you have road trips to Oklahoma, and then you have a night game at A&M.
Yep.
And again, Oklahoma could also be a night game. Those are 2 games you could easily lose right there to ranked opponents. So Auburn could have 3 losses going into October, and that only heightens when you have Georgia, Missouri, teams like that. Schedule's a little bit easier, but then you have Alabama to end the year. We're talking about a team that, I mean, for Hugh Freeze to survive this season, because do we feel like he's on the hot seat probably going into the year?
1,000%. No, so, they will. And I think they may still be paying Brian Harsin from a few years ago. But if they want to get rid of him, they will find the money. I don't have any doubts about that.
They need, in my mind, I mean, they got to win 9 games, I think, for Hugh to feel good going into next year and probably have a job. But I could see this Auburn team potentially going 7-5, 6-6, and I don't think that's good enough for a program that invests so much in football, obviously.
His next bold prediction is that Notre Dame will land a top 4 seed in the college ball playoff, which now going to a straight seeding model that is possible. Last year, because they weren't a conference, that was not possible. And he notes they don't have to go 12-0. They could, maybe lose a game to Miami or A&M and still be in a good spot. I think there's a very realistic possibility of this.
I think so, too.
They've got a tough schedule. Again, Miami and A&M and in the first 2 weeks there. You go to Arkansas, which, that could be tricky. Boise State they're playing Boise State this year. Obviously, that's the standard with G5. Still got to play Southern Cal. Navy's always tricky because that's a triple option team, and they were good last year. Syracuse at the end of the year. Like, they have some tricky games, and look, I gained a lot of belief in Marcus Freeman as a head coach last year. I think they've got the coach that is capable of bringing them, back into the playoff as maybe a high seed again.
Totally. I see this happening for sure. And aside from the Miami game, all the other games you just listed right there, you know what they have in common? All of them are in South Bend.
Yes, they are.
That's big for Notre Dame. Now, we've seen Notre Dame lose games at home before, a la Marshall just a few years ago. So you never know, man, what can happen.
Here's their road trips. Miami, challenging, obviously. Fayetteville, Arkansas, again, if they lose there, they'd probably storm the field because that'd be an upset, which tells you where Arkansas is at right now. Boston College, bleh. Pittsburgh, bleh. Stanford, bleh.
They should go, at worst, one loss on the road, I think. And I think maybe week one is where they
Miami's probably
lose.
your best chance.
Yeah. And the good thing about the A&M game is that you have a bye week in week 2, which is kind of crazy. So I think that falls perfectly. And then you have a bye week before going to Chestnut Hill in November. So CJ Carr, freshman, is going to be starting at quarterback for Notre Dame this year. We'll see how that looks. But you mentioned Marcus Freeman. I'm so confident in him that I feel like we had the conversation the other day. By the end of the next decade, with 2035, 10 years from now, I think Marcus Freeman leads Notre Dame to a national championship.
Does he stay at Notre Dame or does he go somewhere else? Brian Kelly left. Could Marcus Freeman go somewhere else? What if? Let me just throw a scenario out there at you. What if Ryan Day continues to lose to Michigan, and in like 3 years they haven't, made another playoff or national championship appearance, and they fire him? You think Marcus Freeman wanted to go coach at his alma mater?
He did play there, so it's. But being at Notre Dame, I feel like you can't take that for granted. Coaching at Notre Dame is that's got to be such a cool thing to do.
Quite literally the holy grail of college football.
Hey, Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, so
not impossible.
It's not impossible.
One more here before the break. James Franklin will be a top 5 team for the first time since 2016. I'll believe it when I see it.
So let's go to Penn State's schedule. They got Oregon under the lights. I'm going to say it. I do think this is the year Penn State finally beats a top 5 team. Well, here's the thing. Oregon's number 7 right now.
Yes.
Oregon would have to jump up a few spots for this to happen.
I think there's a chance that could be the case.
I mean, I don't think they're going to Ohio State and winning. I don't see that being the case. I think Oregon at home, under the lights, that's the game I think College Game Day would probably be there for.
Yep.
I think it's a top 5 matchup with those teams. Penn State under the lights, whiteout would be pretty crazy for them to win.
Yeah, those are kind of the only 2 games. Now, I'm assuming this also means in the playoff too. So, again, they never had to play a top 5 team in the playoff last year. So, theoretically, if you get into the semifinals and you were taking on Georgia, who's number 3, or Texas or something like that, that could also count for that game.
Totally.
But again, I think James Franklin is who he is. He's a very good coach that just cannot quite get over the hump of beating elite teams, which, hey, you can still be very successful doing that. And look, making the semifinals as a Penn State team last year, that, is heights they've not seen since the Paterno days. So the fans are happy, but I just don't see them getting over that hump anytime soon. I mean, this would be the year if it was going to happen, but I don't have that belief.
Yeah, I'm not fully bought into what they can do, but I will say, if there's a year that Penn State is going to go all the way and potentially win a national championship and really have a great year, it's got to be this year. I mean, you have Drew Aller coming back. You have so many talented players returning. I know you lost Abdul Carter and guys like that, but I'm forgetting the tight end's name off the top.
Tyler Warren.
Yeah, Tyler Warren. Yep. You lost those guys, but I mean, again, this has got to be the year for Penn State.
We'll hit more of Andy Staples' 10 bold predictions for the 2025 college football season coming up next as the halftime show rolls along. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Captain Dave on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head and Jack Beltry and Captain Dave with you on your Thursday here on The Game. We're evaluating Andy Staples' 10 bold predictions for the 2025 college football season. You can read the full article on on3.com. We'll skip over a couple of these here. Number 5 he lists is Ohio State will beat Michigan for the first time since 2019. I feel like that shouldn't be a bold prediction. But at the same time, I thought there was no way Michigan was going to win last year, and, well, what happened?
Yeah, it's and again, this game is in Ann Arbor this year too, so that's going to be tougher. You know, the hype around Michigan going to this year, Bryce Underwood starting at quarterback for the Wolverines, most likely going to be really interesting to watch. That I think we expect Michigan, in the midst of all their scandals and stuff and all the controversy, I think we expect them to have a better year because, again, the narrative around them changed a lot last year when they beat the teams that they did towards the end of the season.
Yeah, no, they finished strong. And, again, you beat Alabama and Ohio State in any capacity. That's obviously going to be a really big deal. And I still think the perception that a lot of people have that Ohio State tried to beat Michigan in its own game was very true because you saw what Ohio State did in the playoff. There is no reason they should not have run up 50 points on that Michigan team a year ago, but they didn't. They tried to beat them at a physical type of game, and they lost. And I would think Ryan Day's not going to make that same mistake twice.
Exactly. And look, they have a different quarterback this year. No more Will Howard, but again, Julian Sainz starting for the Buckeyes going into this year. I know that was announced this week by Ryan Day, but you look at it like it doesn't matter who. I don't think it really matters who the quarterback is necessarily. Yes, it's a big part of it, who's throwing the ball, but you have your top guy, Jeremiah Smith. You have other guys that you can sling the ball to, and that's going to make a big difference with what this offense can do again this year.
Yeah, again, it shouldn't be another case of Ohio State falling to Michigan. And if so, especially if Ohio State does not win the national championship again, that's when people start getting a little testy with Ryan Day. And yes, he's less than a year removed from winning a national championship, but that's how much that game means to the people in Columbus that, hey, man, we're not supposed to be losing to these guys this many years in a row.
You would still have people begging for him to be fired if he lost to Michigan again this year. That's crazy because, again, it doesn't matter how many national championships you win, I don't think. You got to beat Michigan. That's the big thing.
Number 7 on his list, Bill Belichick's first North Carolina team will win fewer than 7.5 regular season games. That's where the line's at as of right now, or the odds are at as of right now. They open up on Labor Day night against TCU. They've got a tough schedule ahead of them, and that's a team that's pretty much rebuilt completely in the transfer portal. And just here's my thing. Bill Belichick is literally the most accomplished head coach in NFL history. I give him his flowers for that, right? It seemed like, though, when Brady left, Bill Belichick did not adapt to the game that the NFL was at that point in time, and his Patriot teams struggled. I know they made that one, wild card with Mac Jones, but everything just got progressively worse and worse and worse from there. And I just don't know if he comes in and immediately ascends to the top of the throne of college football. I do think there's going to be some growing pains.
I don't think he's ever getting to the top of college football. I don't think that's happening at all. And look, do I think this is going to go completely terrible, blow up in his face? There's a chance, but I think if he sticks around long enough, which again, that's the other thing. How long is Bill Belichick going to be at the college level? Do we give it like 3-4 years? I don't know. This year, though, you got TCU right out of the gate. I think UNC is going to find a way to win that game, but from there, it's like you got Clemson coming into town October 4th. That will be really the biggest test I think this team has all year. Number one, because it comes sandwiched in between 2 bye weeks. So if you can win those 2 games, you have a lot of people very confident in you, but then you go on the road to Cal Berkeley on a Friday. That's going to be tough. You go to Syracuse on a Friday on Halloween. You go to NC State at the end of the year. It could easily fall apart quickly if you don't win these games early on in the year.
I'm just envisioning a 6-6, North Carolina team playing in the Serve Pro First Responders Bowl the day after Christmas against I don't know, a 7-5 Arizona team.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, I never thought I'd see Bill Belichick here.
No, I don't know what to really expect. And even 6 wins might be good for this program this year. Maybe getting to a bowl game in year 1 is probably a big step in the right direction for UNC.
His last prediction here, Arch Manning will have an excellent season and be back in college football in 2026. Again, this goes back to where his grandfather said, the other day that, hey, he's definitely going to come back for 2026. And then Arch is like, I don't know about that. So the jury's still out on what that decision's going to be as of right now. But I'm in the camp where I think Arch Manning is going to have a pretty good season. Does that mean he's going to win the Heisman Trophy? Not necessarily, but I think he's still capable of being a very good quarterback, and he's got plenty of talent around him that's going to allow him to succeed compared to a lot of other guys, in their first 4 years as starters.
I think he's going to be solid. I think he's going to have a good year. And hearing the way he talked the other day about, Archie obviously came out with his grandfather talking about, he's going to stick in college for another year. He didn't sound too sure on that, giving his own take on it. So we'll see what happens. It wouldn't shock me if he goes to the NFL, but at the same time, I think he's going to have a great year.
Do you think that even just a good Arch Manning season still gets him to the stage in New York in December?
Again, what do we characterize as a good season for Arch Manning?
Like if he had Quinn Ewers' numbers from last year.
No, I don't think so. No, 12 interceptions? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
That's too high. The turnovers were a problem for Quinn, I feel like, last year. And again, I think Quinn is a good quarterback, but I don't think that type of season would be where Arch is getting the invite to New York, especially with the other guys like Lenore Sellers, Drew Aller potentially, guys like that, Jeremiah Smith. I just don't see it happening.
I do think that, Arch's numbers, if they're just a little off from, again, let's just say it is, Garrett Nussmeier and Lenore Sellers also there. If his numbers are a little bit lower, I would still think he's got a really good shot at winning the thing, considering the name, right? You know what I mean? It carries so much weight. It's why the hype is what it is, because he comes from the most famous family in football, lineage of quarterbacks, all those kind of things. He doesn't have to be necessarily the superstar that we all are, or many people are building him up to be, to still be really successful, but I do think it will help him out.
Typically, the Heisman, I think, sends about 4 to 5 guys to New York for the ceremony. If Arch were on the verge and it wasn't clear cut, I could totally see them adding a 6th guy with him being that. That's the insanity I would see it going to.
Yeah, I don't think he'd be that low in the voting, to be honest with you. Anyway,
I think he's going to be there just based on the good play that he has.
Because there's a lot of people that will look at the Heisman Trophy, the voters of the Heisman Trophy, that are maybe more casual than they should be. They're like, oh, his numbers are pretty good. Yeah, I'll vote for him.
You have a Heisman
that's
trophy.
A real thing.
You have a Heisman. It's just like the AP poll and stuff. If you have a vote in this, take it seriously. Do the right thing.
I've always been of the belief that only Heisman Trophy winners should vote for the Heisman Trophy.
I would love to see that.
I know some of them are involved in it, but I wish it was just Heisman Trophy winners voting on.
But then again, how often are those guys watching the games now?
That's true, but at least they played, and at least they understand the caliber of player they were to win the Heisman Trophy. I don't know. It's a pipe dream, but that's always been my thought on it.
It should be. That would be pretty cool, though.
So there's some predictions by Andy Staples and what he thinks will happen in the college football season. We'll take a quick little detour into college baseball real quick coming up next, because the NCAA and the Baseball Selection Committee have tweaked some rules a little bit for how the baseball tournament's going to operate come next postseason. We'll dive into that coming up next. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Veltri, Captain Dave on your Thursday on the Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. It's our Ed, Jack Veltri, and Captain Dave along with you here on your Thursday on the game. We'll detour away from college football for just a moment because some interesting news coming away from college baseball. Kendall Rogers of D1 Baseball first reporting this yesterday that there's going to be some tweaks being done to the postseason format in terms of the 64-team field. He says the NCAA Division I Baseball Selection Committee in 2026 will begin seeding teams 1 through 32 instead of 1 to 16. Teams outside of the top 16 will be placed into groups and will then be distributed with geographical considerations. It goes on to say when seeding 1 to 32 does create more accountability for the selection committee and provide fans a clear picture. It's not a straight 1 to 32 seeding, since theoretically a 17 seed could go to a 13 seed because of geographical considerations. This is the same kind of model that volleyball and soccer already use.
I don't mind this. I think this is probably, it makes sense to have it be more geographically sound.
Sure.
I remember Florida State won their regional and then had to go all the way out to Oregon State.
Yeah.
Like that, like you see that, and again, that's just by the nature sometimes of the seeding that you have, where it just so happens that you're paired up. Like South Carolina 2 years ago when they went to a super, they didn't have to go very far. They had to go to Florida. So
Sure.
It can happen sometimes, though, where you have an East Coast team having to travel all the way out to the West Coast. It happens quite a lot, honestly.
Now, I don't know if that's going to change how they do 1 to 16, because again, you still have the top 16 host sites, and I imagine you're still, based on the way the bracket works, paired up with your corresponding number on the other side. Now, they may change the way they do it to try and make sure that, okay, we're going to try and pair teams up bracket-wise that would be closer together. So again, you're not having a Florida State going all the way to the West Coast. I don't think we got the clarification on that part yet.
No, but in terms of, from the sound of it,
yes,
keeping the teams that, like, it is a little bit confusing, but keeping everyone kind of geographically in the same area,
yes.
It makes sense.
So you're not going to have like a Long Beach State probably come to South Carolina for like a regional. You know what I mean?
No,
like,
there's no need for that.
There's no need for that. Like, and again, we hope Carolina's back in the postseason in some capacity next year, but let's say they aren't a top 16 host seed. You're not going to want to see them get sent all the way out to, Oklahoma State or something like that. Like, you'll go to Florida or you'll go to NC State or something like that.
And typically the NCAA has done a decent job from my memory. 2 years ago, I say 2 years ago for 2023, but really now it's 3 seasons ago. 2024, they went to NC State for the regional. So they did a pretty good job of keeping it in the Carolinas. Even during Mark Kingston's first year, where South Carolina went to one game within going to Omaha with the Super Regional in Arkansas, they played at ECU for the regional for East Carolina. So they've done a good job in the past of that. And we see it with other schools and stuff. Like, you're keeping a lot of the West Coast teams that are 2, 3, 4 seeds in that same area. But they're going to probably be – you can't make everyone happy, I don't think.
Sure.
But I think this is probably a better way of trying to make it to where no one really has to travel that far outside of maybe a few states.
Yeah, and I don't think it's something we're really going to think about a lot when the tournament finally gets here. Like, it's news now because they are making – a procedural change. When you get there, I think you're just like, okay, there's the tournament, there's the bracket, and let's go. But I do think it's smart to again try and ease the challenge that some teams do have to face of going too far and having to travel for a regional that's way out of the way for them.
Yeah, especially for smaller teams that maybe some teams probably drive. I mean, again, like not every team has the luxury of flying out to every location. Like, you're gonna have to fly if you're going from like California to Florida, but
sure,
there are a lot of teams that will bus. So
we just we hope Carolina's part of it this year. God, they need to be a part of it, or things things will turn.
This time next year, if they're missing the postseason again, I'd be very intrigued to see what kind of conversation we're having, because I don't think it's going to be a very good one.
If they miss the postseason and have as bad of a season they had this past year as well, what do you do?
I think you fire Paul Maneri. I think if you have as bad of a season as you had this past year, there is no way you can possibly go about keeping. Again, I think Paul is going to. Personally, I know we'll get into fall ball here in a few months, but I personally think South Carolina is going to have a better year. I don't think they can be as bad as last year. The things that I saw watching this team as much as I did last year, I just cannot see a way in which you bring in an entirely new roster, 27 new guys, only 10 returning, and you brought back a lot of the good ones. I just cannot see a way in which this team is significantly worse than they were last year.
Well, that's the thing that we talked about, coming away from the season is that, he got his wish. Like, hey, you've got an entirely new team now. You don't have to work with really any of the scraps left over from the Kingston era that you don't want to have on your team.
No.
Because you had a lot of players leave. You brought in a lot of players from the portal, and it's like, all right, let's put up or shut up. Go out there and prove it.
And that makes it easier to justify, like, hey, like, if he has a good season, like, he can be like, hey, I told you so. We need to flip the roster. We did that. For South Carolina, though, from, like, the administration standpoint, if Carolina has another terrible year in baseball, it's a lot easier to be like, hey, we gave you a chance to get your own roster out there. We're moving on from you.
And much like we talk about with Lamont Paris and men's basketball, and they're in a pretty critical year themselves coming up here pretty soon in a couple months. You don't have the Donati hired the guy, right? Those were Ray Tanner hires, and Moneri was Ray Tanner's last hire before he, chose to step away from his AD role. So Jeremiah Donati does not have the relationship of, hey, I believed in you, I brought you in for this reason or that reason. Like, he would not be afraid to cut ties if he does not feel like they are helping the program.
I don't think he's going to be patient waiting this out. Again, South Carolina is a baseball program rich with tradition and history. People expect to win. And when you have no people going to games last year and stuff, as the season goes along, you have people just wanting change to happen only one season in. Like, this has got to be a year where they're way more productive than they were last year.
Do you think he gets booed at opening day, like when they introduce him? Paul?
No. I don't think so. Now, you ask me a few months later when he's making a pitching change or whatever, and the season goes bad, yeah, potentially. But that happened a little bit last year.
Yeah, and we had the fallout of the report that came out after the season. I just didn't know if you think people would still be harboring those feelings come February.
Oh, believe me, they will be. They will be. There will be a close eye on this baseball program going into the other. People are very, like, they're not super optimistic, but I think this team, I'm not saying they're going to make the postseason, but I do think it cannot get any worse than last year. Just trust me on that.
We'll see what happens. That's a very long way away, and hopefully it's better than this year, because that was absolutely abysmal. We'll get back into football conversation coming up next, including Brandon Cisse maybe being one of the breakout players in college football. We'll tell you about that coming up next as we hit hour number 3 of the Halftime Show. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, Captain Dave on your Thursday on the Game. Tyler Ed here for our friends over at Old Timey Meat Market. I've been saying it a lot. You're only a couple days away from the college football season getting started, quite literally only 2 days away from week 0. So you need to start figuring out your grilling plans, whether you're grilling at home, watching the game, or at the tailgate over here at South Carolina this upcoming season. You need to have all the best meats to take care of your grilling needs. And if you go to Old Timey Meat Market, you'll find their shelves stocked with various cuts and grades of beef, pork, poultry, seafood, and exotic meats. The selection are always fresh, never frozen, competitively priced, and of the highest quality. You can truly get all that you need for your tailgating, whether at home or at the game, over at Old Timey Meat Market in St. Andrews, Lexington, or my neck of the woods. It's just St. Andrews, South Congaree, or my neck of the woods out in Lexington. As they say, Old Timey Meat Market, quality selection, and a cut above the rest. Welcome back in hour number 3. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Belcher, Captain Dave, along with you on your Thursday here on the game. I hit my hat when I was putting on my headphones, and now my hair is all messed up. So if you're watching me on the live stream, sponsored by Shepherd's Glass, Power Brand Integrated Media, you can see my messed up hair poking through my hat now.
You can see my awesome Yankee hat too.
Yeah, it's pretty. That's
it's pretty cool.
What year All-Star game is that?
This year.
This year. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Neat.
We haven't talked about them in a while, but dude, how about them Yankees, man? Swept the Cardinals, swept the Rays. Did you see how many home runs they hit in this 2-game series with Tampa?
I did not. I imagine a lot.
14 homers. They hit 9 on Tuesday, which is tied for the most in the MLB this season with what the Yankees did in their opening series earlier this year. So it's
must be nice to have a team that's still in contention.
Well, ask me on Monday after they play the Red Sox, because they start a 4-game series with them tonight. So, yeah, and I'm sure Mike Yuva is going to be all on me.
I would expect nothing less.
I'm dying for the Yankees to win this series this weekend, just so, because Yuva posts these stupid photos of me.
I know.
All the time on Twitter, every time the Yankees lose to the Red Sox.
There's the one photo of you sitting on like a curb or something, right?
I was at the Gamecock Central kickoff party when we used to have those back in the day. Yeah. I'm sitting on the curb just looking at my phone, and I guess he caught me in 4K, and it was.
I think that's the first place I met you at, right?
Yeah,
I think it was.
Yeah. So, again, he God, it just grinds my gears, man. So
well,
hoping that will change.
You can rest comfortably knowing that you'll be able to hold the Bills over the Patriots on him once again this year.
That's what we hope.
Yeah.
But I'd rather have the Yankees be better than the Red Sox.
That's true.
So,
yeah, I get it. So that's what's happening on the baseball front. Getting back into football here. One thing that Clayton White actually got asked a lot about yesterday was Brandon Cisse and cut number 31, Dave. Here is Coach White talking about Cisse's versatility in the secondary.
Yes, I think one quality in the defensive back room is speed, burst, and change of direction, and he has all 3 of those. And then you have the football IQ to go with it, and then the want to do all those things and have no setback in your game. That's not many teams have that. I mean, we only had it a couple of times here to have that kind of player, but it means a lot to be able to do that. So it just helps us at the end of games. It helps us if someone goes down, if a team has a dynamic slot, if we want to put Kilgore other places. So it's fun. It makes it fun for a coordinator and position coach as well. So just got to keep it up.
Is Cisse's the one transfer that I don't think we have concerns about, because he's got proven production at a Power 4 school at NC State. He slides perfectly into the spot that they're going to have him play with that opposite corner spot, opposite of Judge Collier. Like, we just kind of expect, like, hey, this guy's probably going to go out there and have a really, really good season.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that he's going to have a really good season, because Adam Rittenberg on ESPN listed the potential breakout players for the college football season, and Cisse appears as South Carolina's representative on there, and I could definitely see it. Yeah, we've heard so much about Cisse and what he's going to bring. You know what his nickname is now?
No, I do not.
Glitch.
That's right. I did hear about that yesterday.
Glitch. So I'm looking for. Hopefully, we get to talk to him next week, get a little more insight on that. But yeah, so we hear really good things about him and stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing. We expect him to probably be starting out there at DB this year, lining opposite of Judge Carr. Looking forward to seeing how that looks.
So, and again, this is on the list of Adam Rittenberg of sleeper college football players that could have breakout years. What does breakout mean to you? Like it could be a statistic, it could be a moment. Yeah. Like, what is something that quantifies a breakout season for Brandon Cisse?
I think you kind of just group it all together right there. Like, you always have the stats, but then there's that moment where it's like yeah, this guy's like we're gonna know this year. That moment that comes, like, man, South Carolina got a dude out there, DB. Whether it's a pick 6 or something, like, when they look back at this move, I think it's gonna pay off really well for them.
I think about it from the standpoint, if you're a great corner, they don't throw to your side of the field. Right? You just like, you know what? I don't even want to worry about that. That guy's too good. If it gets to the point where we don't have to talk about Brandon Cisse a whole lot because they're just not throwing to him, I think that's the sign of a breakout season, because you're posing such a threat that opposing offense and quarterback don't even want to try your side of the field.
Like, if we're talking about him getting burnt every week and stuff, and for all the wrong reasons, which I don't think that is going to be the case. But if that is, it's not a good sign. But again, I don't think that is going to be the case. I think he's going to have a strong year out there, DB. I expect South Carolina's secondary to really be a strength of this defense this year. One that could honestly hoist them to being, maybe not to that same level the overall defense was last year, but if they were getting interceptions and stuff, I think it could be a good group this year.
And Clayton White did also have to kind of clarify the position of Cisse possibly playing the nickel spot too. Cut number 28 here. This is quickly him kind of clarifying what he meant in terms of how Cisse could rotate in as a nickel guy too.
So one, we have multiple guys that can play corner. So if Kilgore needs a break, Brandon Cisse can play the nickel spot, and play our regular defense. So, but yeah, that's what I mean.
And that was and again, he's kind of clarifying on that, but that was an element of versatility that we talked about so much when he came into the portals. He can do multiple things. Not everybody can do that, right? And to play that nickel corner spot, if Jalen Kilgore needs a break, or God forbid, knock on wood, he gets hurt or something like that, you could have like a Vakari Swain slide into the other corner spot, and then you can play Cisse at nickel and feel like you got a pretty good guy there.
I think it could work out really well, and if that's the case, that's a nice benefit that South Carolina could have this year. Because God forbid Jalen Kilgore gets hurt, or he's out for a few series or something, or just needs a breather. You have someone reliable out there that you can certainly count on. And again, I think South Carolina is definitely depending on Kilgore to be the every down nickel. But again, like we said, if he needs a break or something, like Clayton said, you could definitely throw Cisse in there.
It's going to be interesting to see, and you play your first 5 games where I don't really think about any elite receivers on any of those teams. Now that could change, and maybe there's somebody that sparks up for Missouri early on in the season. We're like, wow, and by the time Carolina gets there, he's a big star. But you're going to face a lot of challenging wide receiving cores coming up in that back half of the year, where you face all the ranked opponents: LSU, Alabama, Clemson, A&M, teams like that. At that point, 5+ games in the season, you'll know who your best corner is. And I'll be interested to see if Cisse is the one that's getting tasked with covering the best guy, covering wide receiver number 1 on the other side there, because that's kind of a sign of, okay, that guy's your best corner.
I got to imagine that would probably be the case, but also...
But Judge Collier's still very good.
I was just about to say, I'm really looking to see if Judge can have that big breakout year. Like, you want some of guys that... If Brandon Cisse weren't on this team, I think quite honestly, I think Judge Collier should be on that list that Adam Rittenberg came out with. Like, that would probably be the next guy I would go for to have a breakout year, just because we saw some pretty good things last year. There were some times where even he admitted it, where there are some plays he wish he had back. Like some times where he got beat a little bit. That's going to happen if you're a DB out there.
Sure.
But again, I really do think there's a lot of strength with this DB room, and I think Judge, Cisse, you have obviously Kilgore. That's a pretty good group of DBs right there.
Well, and it's a DB room that now has a reputation, right? I mean, they're putting a guy in the league.
Torian Gray does a great job
pretty much every single year, and I think everybody in that room, DQ Smith, those guys look at that and say, hey, I'm going to be that next guy. I mean, the next guy that's going to come out of here, get drafted wherever, and go play at the next level. And I think that's what's enticing for a guy like Cisse to want to come here. I don't know if he said this specifically, but I imagine he looks as like, man, there's, if I want to go play at the next level, this is a place and a position coach in Torian Gray that is going to give me what I need to get to that point. And again, I expect him to slot in and have a very strong season here.
I totally do expect that going into the season.
So looking forward to that, and seeing if he can end up indeed being a breakout star there. And obviously, as we talk about a lot, if you have a good pass rush, well, that's going to help everything else out, right? Because that means your cornerback's not having to stay in coverage as long. Those guys, the quarterbacks on the other side, aren't going to have as much time to sit back in the pocket and wait for those kind of things. So if pass rush can help out like he did last year, then that makes the job for guys like Cisse, Collier, and everybody else in the secondary a whole lot easier.
And Shane talked about it the other day, Shane Beamer, that is. He mentioned the fact of, I think coming into the Virginia Tech game, I think he was asked something about, Kyron Jones and stopping him and whatnot. But it starts with stopping the run. Like, if you want to be good on defense, you have to be able to stop the run, because then that forces teams to pass. And what do we lead to with passing? You get interceptions, and that's something that the secondary has been really good at over the years. I mean, Jalen Kilgore, there's a reason why he had five interceptions last year. I mean, this is a guy that has been very solid for South Carolina, and you add Cisse, you have Collier coming back for another year as a potential starter. It's a good group, but again, it does not mean anything if you can't stop the run.
Yep. Well, we'll talk some breakout stars coming up here in just a minute, but in case you're just joining us, news from earlier on this morning that we've talked about earlier on in the show as well is South Carolina's headed to Nike in 2026. That first reported by David Cloninger of the Post and Courier. There's a Board of Trustees meeting coming up tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. that we'll be following closely and hopefully get the details of the contract, because Tennessee has not released their details, and that deal was done a week or so ago or whenever it was. But, yeah, South Carolina is set to end its contract with Nike at the end of June of 2026. Under Armour, excuse me, and become a Nike school like the vast majority of Power 4 schools have become in these past handful of years, and that means new uniforms, new apparel, all those kind of things that people have been clamoring for a very long time.
Yeah, get ready for that garage sale style of getting rid of all the apparel. Probably, I would imagine. When do you think that happens, probably?
Oh, man.
And again, Auburn did something like this. Teams do this all the time. I'm sure Tennessee will be doing this here soon, but teams do that. Get rid of all their stock of any Under Armour stuff they have.
I imagine it'll probably be beginning of next summer once you've actually finished out all of your
like
sports.
Mid-June, probably.
Yeah, so whenever baseball's done or softball's done and that last sport has ended its season, it's like, okay, we can sell off everything that we have. And I remember the Auburn sale, I think, was in like June when all their sports had finished. And again, you're going to have to get rid of all your Under Armour assets as quickly as possible to make room for all the Nike stuff. So, yeah, you can probably get a really good deal on Under Armour stuff
and here's the thing,
coming up.
You can get like
summer.
legit jerseys too.
Oh, yeah, like the whole thing. Because they don't have use for anything of that anymore.
No, because again, they're switching over to everything Nike. But again, to kind of sum it up, I think it's a really good deal for South Carolina. Like, again, we'll see if we can figure out the contract and what it looks like and all that, see if that gets revealed. But this has got to be a big one for South Carolina. It's got to be a huge deal, I would imagine.
Yep, so looking forward to that coming up tomorrow morning. We'll dive back into breakout stars. Who else on this team is set to have maybe a breakout year? We'll discuss that coming up next as the halftime show rolls along. It's all right, Jack Felcher, Captain Dave, on your Thursday on the game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Jack Beltry, Captain Dave along with you here on your Thursday on the Game. Coming up at 2:30, going to let you hear a conversation that we had earlier today with Jim Calavay with athletes.org, which is the organization that's helping push for potential collective bargaining in college football. So that conversation coming up here in about 10 minutes or so from the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. But we're talking about breakout players, and Braden Cisse again was listed on Adam Rittenberg's list of potential breakout candidates in college football this upcoming year. So let's just kind of hyper-focus on this South Carolina team. When you think about breakout candidates, who are some of the guys, and kind of go one by one here, that you think have a real chance to go from relative unknowns, and again, we're deep in this. We talk about these guys all the time, but from the general fan base standpoint, guys that people don't really know about right now that we could be talking about a ton as the season goes along.
We talked about him a little bit in the last segment. I'm going Judge Coyer. I really do think this is going to be a superstar type of year for him. We talk about Torian Gray basically seemingly every single year at South Carolina producing one DB to the NFL, the next guy. So many guys he's sent to the league. Judge Coyer entering his third year, potential second year as a starter, had some good moments last year, could really break out this year, I think.
I look at Gabriel Brownlow-Dinley as well. And again, you take everything you hear with a grain of salt, but out of everybody in the D-line room, it seems like he's been talked about the most.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's gotten the most buzz. And again, he was a five-star kid coming out of high school when he went to A&M. So it's not like this is something that should be surprising, but it really seems like he'll potentially be filling that TJ Sanders type of role as like the main guy in the middle of that defense. And I hope that's certainly true, but I've heard so many things about him this offseason. He looks the part. Seems like a very smart guy. I think he's primed to be one of those guys that, again, your average fan maybe not know a whole lot about, but by season's end, like, wow, that Gabriel Brownlow-Dinley was something.
No. I feel like we got to go with one of these freshman receivers, right?
Sure.
I feel like they probably are going to, one guy at least is going to fit right in and make a big impact this year. So I'll start with you asking, who is that breakout freshman receiver?
Man, I feel like the most buzz has been around Brian Rowe. I know Donovan Murph has only been on campus for a short period of time, but he's done a lot since he's been here. I'll probably side with Rowe just because of the extra little bit of experience he had from being here back in the spring and the good things we've heard about him. But you're right, somebody in this room is going to break out.
No, totally. I would probably agree with someone like Brian Rowe. But again, we hear so much about Murph where it's like you can almost bank on one of these six freshman receivers making an impact. And we heard a little bit of, I think it was SHULA talking about it the other day. Like we could easily see maybe multiple of these guys really breaking out this season.
So we'll stick in the wide receiver room here. How about Vendrevius Jacobs?
Kind of a slept-on name, honestly.
Right, because he came in last year after his freshman year at Florida State, dealt with injuries throughout the entire season, so we didn't see him a ton. But, yeah, and I guess it is just kind of the excitement of all these freshmen, but he's not really been discussed a whole lot this offseason, which I feel like, is unfair to him because he does have seemingly a lot of talent, a lot of skill that they're excited about. And, he may be somebody who could be like, oh, wow, I forgot about that guy, when he goes out there and starts making plays here.
Yeah, totally. I mean, again, he was banged up last year, too, so that didn't help his case of really making an impact last year. I think he's someone that could kind of be a threat in the deep ball game. Like, again, we saw it in the Garnet and Black Spring game with that 51-yard bomb from Cutter Woods on his first pass. We saw that a little bit last year. I think he's someone that we talk about the three main guys in the receiver, and we talk about Nick Harbor, we talk about Mazeo Bennett, we talk about Jared Brown. Dre Jacobs is like that fourth guy that like you kind of overlook a little bit, and I could totally see him being someone that has a bigger role this year. Well,
and we knew when he came in here, the thought process was this guy is a development type of piece. Maybe we didn't expect him to come in here and set the world on fire immediately as a redshirt freshman a year ago, and the injury certainly didn't help with that, but we've seen Mike Furry do so much with all of these guys. I got to imagine there's a lot he's been able to hopefully untap with Vendrevius Jacobs as well.
You hope that's definitely the case. Another guy I would probably go for as a breakout star, I I got a good feeling about this one. Peyton Williams.
Okay.
Assuming he wins the safety job, I think he's going to be a stud for South Carolina.
Yeah, and again, he just didn't get as many opportunities last year because he was behind Nicky Minori and DQ Smith. There's no shame in that.
No.
You know, Nicky Minori is obviously nearly a first-round draft pick. So yeah, and again, they trusted him. You know, like in the bowl game when Nicky sat out the second half, like, hey, get out there, it's your role now. And from what I remember, he played fine. Yeah. So we'll see.
The Vanderbilt game was really his first moment to, I don't want to say it was his coming out moment or his breakout moment, but like that's the time when we talk about guys that have those breakout moments. I feel like that one is kind of one that you look for in a guy. And from what I remember that game, had a bunch of tackles, had 2 pass breakups. The one that I remember the most is in like the fourth quarter, a 4th down stop that he deflected a pass and forced a turnover on downs against Vanderbilt. That pretty much slammed the door on the game for the Commodores. So that's a guy that I really look for to step up big this year.
How about Jordan Howell? Especially
that's a good one.
With what we expect is a lack of Rasul Faison. Well, guess what? That's more reps that open up. And again, I expect Attaway to be your main guy this year, but Howell could potentially position himself as that number 2. What we saw out of him last year was good, minus, fumbling in the bowl game where he didn't get another touch after that. In fact, I don't even think he saw the field after that, if I'm remembering correctly. But this was a guy that tore it up at SC State and FCS. Like, those capabilities are there. Again, you were just happened to be in a running back room last year that was dominated by Rocket Sanders. And again, no shame in that. Rocket Sanders is really good. But he's somebody that I feel like has that potential to be one of those wow guys that maybe we didn't talk about quite as much going into the season.
Yeah, totally. It might be tough to see. I don't know if I would necessarily go with Joe Warren as like a breakout guy.
And by the way, I'm not saying he's going to go have 1,000 yards necessarily.
No. But what do you expect from him?
I think he has the potential to be a good, like, secondary complementary type of back. Like, again, if Oscar Attaway is your main guy, he's somebody that still rotates in a lot and can make a lot of plays that way. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be the team's leading rusher or something like that, but he could still have a significant impact.
I would hope so. I mean, you would hope that those 2 guys that redshirted last year, him and Fuller, that we talk about so frequently, that we see something out of both of them to really step up this year. I'm going to stay in the running back room for another breakout guy here. I like Isaiah Gustave. We've heard a lot about him in the preseason here. Obviously, in the scrimmage, he had that 60, 70-yard run that Shane mentioned the other day.
Which is the longest of the scrimmages so far.
Yes, which is good to see. So that's something where, look, we expect Oscar Attaway to be the RB1 going into the season if Faison were not cleared. But again, you look for a complimentary back, and it's not going to be one guy that's taking all the carries when the season gets going. It's going to be 3, 4 guys probably, and you're going to have a lot of them travel probably. So I would really expect to see someone like Gustave get some opportunities early on, see if maybe he could be that breakout guy in the running back room.
We'll see if we're right about that. Jack, appreciate you filling in once again today, and looking forward to hanging out tomorrow at Charwood.
Absolutely, my man.
Again, coming up next, you'll hear the conversation myself, Wes, and Chris had with Jim Cavall of athletes.org and the push for maybe a CBA in the future of college sports. That's coming up next as the halftime show rolls along. It's all right, Jack Feltry, Captain Dave, on your Thursday on the game. Tyred here for our friends over at Old Timey Meat Market. Again, the season is just a couple of days away. You need to make sure you have all your tailgating plans together, and you can't tailgate without a good grill. And there's no better way to cheer on the Gamecocks than with your own Traeger grill. You can grill out with family and friends. Old Timey Meat Market has plenty of Traeger grills in stock with plenty of pellets, rubs, sauces, and accessories too. You can come by Old Timey Meat Market in Lexington today and take a look at the many sizes of Traeger grills. Old Timey Meat Market and Traeger grills, a perfect combination. And of course, while you're there, you can grab all sorts of those great meats like beef, pork, poultry, seafood, and exotic meats as well to make sure you are grilling up the best stuff on the best grill. Traeger Grills and Old Timey Meat Market, perfect combination. Get down there today and check them out. Welcome back in. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. It's our Ed West Mitchell, Chris Clark along with you here on your Thursday on the game. We always love talking about what's going on the field in college athletics, but also plenty of news off the field, especially this past offseason. Joining us now on the AAA Heating and Air phone lines to discuss what the future of college athletics might be from athletes.org. It is Jim Cavall. Jim, first of all, appreciate you taking your time for us this morning. First of all, tell people a little bit about who you are and what exactly athletes.org is.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, first of all. And, I'm a guy who used to be a college athlete a long time ago from New York, ended up going down to Alabama to play college baseball, and I've been an entrepreneur in the sports and fitness industry for 20 years, and most recently built Influencer and Teamworks, which is a software company that most college athletic departments use, and a lot of pro teams, for everything from NIL activity to building brands on social media for the athletes to communicating and scheduling their lives. So worked with the schools for, years, for about a decade, and started athletes.org in 2023 because I'm a firm believer that the only way we can have rules and structure in college athletics, whether it's transfer rules, compensation rules, academic requirements, eligibility limits, is you need collective bargaining. You need a partnership between college athletes and their schools. And so we're building the vehicle for the college athletes, the Players Association for College Athletes, through athletes.org. And we have 5,000 members that are current college athletes playing all kinds of sports at all kinds of schools, but the majority of our members play power conference football and basketball.
Jim, Chris here. Thanks so much again for taking your time. So right off the bat here, I know that you have communicated, and people should follow you on Twitter at Jim Cavall, on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it these days, for your insights. But I know that you communicate with both sides, right? You obviously have athletes.org. You're in communication with athletes all the time, but you've also talked to player personnel people, GMs, coaches, et cetera. And am I wrong in that it seems like people do want to move in this direction ultimately? What are the holdups?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I appreciate the plug on Twitter, and anybody that wants to follow and engage, whether it's X or Instagram, I love to do that. So please give me a follow, and happy to talk. As far as where we are, when I launched this with Brandon Copeland, my co-founder and partner, who's a 10-year NFL vet, voted on the 2020 NFL CBA as a player, we set out and launched it, and we didn't know what the reaction would be. It was August 2023, so about 2 years ago. And I can tell you a lot of ADs that I was close with when I was at Teamworks and Influencer were not happy with me when I launched it. Some saw the vision, but many didn't. But if you fast forward 2 years later, self-settlement finally gets done, and everybody's seeing there's still a tremendous amount of chaos. There are no transfer rules. Transfer rules will probably be tested even further. I think you'll see an athlete transfer in the middle of the season, try to play for another team. There are no eligibility rules. Eligibility limits continue to get tested. We saw that as recent as this year. Now Diego Pavia playing an extra year, and other players getting injunctions as well. There is no cap. It wasn't collectively bargained with the House settlement, so you really can't have an anti-circumvention system like the College Sports Commission is trying to do. So collectives are still going to inflate this cap to as much as we're hearing $40 million for a roster. And so those things have gotten a lot of the leaders from ADs down to coaches and GMs to say, we know we need collective bargaining. How can we get it done? And the biggest thing slowing us down is there has to be two entities that collectively bargain. There's the Players Association, like the NFLPA and football pro, but there's the NFL. That's the league. And the NFL and the NFLPA negotiate the collective bargaining agreement that becomes all the rules. And there is no clear entity to be the league for the teams to be a part of to bargain. Is it the SEC? Is it the Power Four? Is it all of FBS? That part is a big reason that we're not at a place where it's actually happening. Another thing is there's a huge, enormous naivete at the AD and president level about collective bargaining from a political standpoint. Presidents at schools, mainly in southern states, but any red state that's a right-to-work state, thinks, well, we can't collectively bargain. We're in a right-to-work state. You can't unionize here. We're not pro-union here. This has nothing to do with that. South Carolina football players would not be collectively bargaining with the University of South Carolina. They'd be collectively bargaining with a central entity that is the league. And that's why Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, he's not a big labor union guy, but he doesn't care that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers players collectively bargain, because they don't collectively bargain with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They collectively bargain with the NFL. And so getting presidents and ADs to understand there are no political concerns about this, and that this will bring structure, and their hunger that keeps growing for structure has us closer than we've ever been. But there still are steps that have to be done to get there.
Hey, Jim, this is Wes. Appreciate you hopping on. I was reading on athletes.org, and you probably spoke to a little bit of this already, but you guys spoke with and kind of polled some of the guys that are right there in the battles with all this and have to deal with everything you've just talked about on a day-to-day It says on your website here, 24 college football general managers. And so for people that don't know who are listening, these are your director of player personnel type guys. These are the guys that are recruiting the rosters, trying to keep the rosters intact. What, maybe if you can tell us, were some takeaways, just generally speaking, that most of the folks in that group kind of all agreed with, I guess?
Well, I think, it starts with the fact that 100% of them voted that they want a collective bargaining agreement. So, they're all there in Nashville where we met, and we met in a private setting, and it was a meeting that was scheduled to be for 3 hours. It went for 5 till midnight on Sunday, August 3rd. And there's a ton of back and forth on a lot of other issues because there wasn't 100% agreement necessarily, but there was always majority agreement on everything from how we structure transfer rules, how we structure eligibility rules, do we have rookie caps with incentives, veteran bonuses, and all the topics that we cultivated a conversation around, we've talked to our players about. We met with our players via player reps from 53 different power conference schools at the CFP in Atlanta at the beginning of the year. And we talked about the same topics with them. So we're able to take the data we had from meetings like that with players, polling players on the Athletes.org member app, and we were able to say, hey, here's the player's perspective on these things. As a GM, what's your perspective? And the biggest summation would be they are closer than you would think on almost every issue. And so I don't think getting a CBA done is going to be, the most difficult thing in the world when it comes to what the final set of rules are in the first ever CBA. It's more about getting everybody in a room. And that's hard to do right now because there's a lot of politics.
Well, Jim, what is the reason? So I always found it strange. I know you talk about this a lot too, and when I'm following your work and your thoughts on this whole deal. When I see meetings and congressional hearings and just thoughts, right, that are put out there by administrators, even some coaches, I'm like, where are the athletes? Like, I don't see the athletes at the table. So I guess my question for you is, why are some folks so quick to not include the thoughts of athletes? Is it because they're trying to hang on to power? It's because the power balance has shifted? Like, what is your view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty simple. If there's not a recognized union and there's not a collective bargaining agreement, the athletes will never have an official voice in anything. The schools and the leadership of college athletics has always looked at the players when it comes to key issues and said, we'll take whatever we give them because this is just a stop along the way and they're going to end up going to the NFL. And even if they won't go to the NFL, they think they will. So they'll take whatever we offer them. And that has always been the mindset. I mean, look at the EA Sports video game last year. Okay. You had a video game do $1 billion in sales. In the NFL, the royalty is 15%, which means $150 million of that money would have went to the players. Okay. In college, the players took $600 and a copy of the game, and they validated the assumption of leadership, which is they'll take whatever they can get. Right. They'll think it's cool to be in the game. Right. They're doing the same thing right now with the CFP. Rumors of a 2018 playoffs, but nobody's talking about what do the players think about that. Are they going to make sure that they get extra revenue sharing for all these extra games? Because that's going to be more money for the schools. Are there health or safety concerns with playing 16, 17 games in the season when college football used to have 10 regular season games and 1 bowl game, and now we're up to that? No, there's none of that talk. And there won't be any official involvement or collaboration with athletes until you have collective bargaining.
Again, talking to Jim Cavale of athletes.org. Got about 3 more minutes here before we have to hit a break. But with all this, there's steps being taken and things are in the works. But if you had to put a timetable on how long it would take for an actual CBA to happen in college sports, what would that look like?
People ask me that all the time. And, we're building a unique business for me. I mean, this is my 4th company, but it's very different than the others. We don't make any money right now. We don't charge member dues to the athletes, and we spend a lot. We have a team of 12 people, and we're going out there signing up athletes, giving them benefits like free legal, free accounting, agent background checks, stuff like that. So it's like we're spending a lot of money, and we're investing with the mindset that this is something that is going to take until 2030 to really get to. So I think that's kind of the max is like, I think it's the max is 5 years away. I could see it happening in a year. I think there's going to be so much chaos in the next 4 or 5 months with college football. I think you're going to see the fact that they're calling these revenue sharing deals, NIL deals, when we all know they're pay for play. And so these contracts are papered up in a way that's going to make it really hard for coaches to hold athletes accountable. I think it's going to be a huge issue. I think that athletes are going to transfer and test the transfer rules more and more. There is no portal technically. It's just it's a concept. So when you hear transfer portal and which states and all that, just realize the NCAA has come out and said you technically can unenroll and enroll at a school anytime you want. And so those are just two of many issues. Eligibility is going to continue to get tested. We know fans are not necessarily keen to the idea of players playing 6, 7, 8 years in college. And so I think a lot of chaos happening and the House settlement continuing to be tested and not be what people thought it was going to be could get them to the table by this time next year. So it's a 1 to 5 year range.
He is Jim Cavale of athletes.org. You can follow him on Twitter and also follow athletes.org as we'll certainly keep an eye on everything you guys are doing as the nature and the landscape of college sports continues to change. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Again, we'll continue on with the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs and get into what the coordinators had to say yesterday when talking to the media coming up next as your Thursday rolls along here on The Game. Welcome back in. It is the halftime show. Tyler Head, Captain Dave along with you. We let Jack go home a little bit early. We've asked him to do plenty today already. We'll see him tomorrow over at Charwood Golf Club for the Game Summer Golf Classic. And we hope to see you there too, by the way. It's sponsored by Krager Showrooms, formerly known as The Nest, over in the Vista. And we're going to be out there all day long from 6 a.m. until about 3 p.m. Obviously, golf gets rolling at 9 that morning. Registration will begin at 7:30. We're going to have some delicious onion sausages, which I've been thinking about all week long. Looking forward to eating those tomorrow. And, of course, delicious Firehouse subs for lunch as well. And the mimosa bar is also going to be provided by Saki's Wine and Spirits. I'm still being told there is one spot left. So if you want to take part, give Charwood a call at 803-755-2000 to be a part of our Games Summer Golf Classic, sponsored by Krager Showrooms, formerly The Nest, over in the Vista. So I wanted to wrap up here. The college football playoff has tweaked its metric, I guess is maybe the best way to phrase it, for how they look at your record relative to the teams that you play. This is the way it's phrased. The college football playoff, this is from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports. The college football playoff added metric of record strength, which will help the committee determine how teams performed against their schedule, rewarding those that beat high-quality opponents while minimizing the penalty of losing to one. These changes will also provide minimal reward for beating a lower-quality opponent while imposing a greater penalty for losing to one. So this is a way to incentivize playing tougher teams and de-incentivize playing lesser teams. So you look at somebody like Indiana that is going out there and scheduling nothing but cupcakes in their non-conference slate because the Big Ten doesn't have any kind of rule that prevents them from doing so. Well, if their resume came to having hairs split compared to others, those wins against those lower quality teams aren't going to do anything for them compared to, if you went out there and played, SEC schools, big ACC schools, or Big 12 schools in your non-conference slate. Now, the hang up on this is the fact that I thought we were already doing this. I thought, because it's one thing when you had like the BCS formula to where you had like the actual formula and metric having to be altered based on who the opponent was and all that kind of stuff, and it spits out a number. I thought the human element of the college football playoff, that eye test, that reasoning that you and I can have when we watch a team play saying, all right, yeah, Ohio State beat that team by 50 points, but that's Bowling Green. As opposed to, oh, wow, Ohio State beat Penn State, who was ranked number 7 by 50 points. That's a lot more impressive. I thought we were already doing that, but apparently not. And, of course, last year with the college football playoff, you had the controversy of should a 11-1 Indiana team be in, along with like SMU at 11-2, should those teams be in over like a 9-3 Alabama or a 9-3 Ole Miss or a 9-3 South Carolina? They were in the mix there too. Obviously, the committee sided with the Indianas. They sided with the SMUs. Those teams proceeded to get run pretty easily out of the building in their respective first-round playoff games. And maybe that changes the perception going forward. I don't know. But I do wonder, this was my thought when I heard this yesterday. When you look at what they're saying of you're going to be rewarded for beating high-quality opponents and penalized for losing to lesser opponents, could that have potentially put South Carolina in a better spot? I don't think it would have been enough to maybe get them in the playoff necessarily, but I think they at the very least could have been ahead of both Alabama and Ole Miss, even though they lost to those two teams, because you think about it, Carolina's losses were to LSU, Alabama, and Ole Miss. All three really good teams, right? Well, Alabama's 3 losses, last year were Tennessee, good team, obviously made the playoff themselves, Vanderbilt, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma especially was really, really bad, right? Ole Miss last year, hey, they lost to Kentucky, lost to LSU, good team, and lost to Florida. So you have 2 noticeably bad losses on the resumes of those 2 teams that were ahead of South Carolina, despite the fact they went head-to-head. I do wonder, with the fact that you're now counting more for beating quality opponents, and Carolina didn't have any bad losses, could that have potentially put them in a better spot? Now, again, I think you're still on the outside looking in no matter what, But I do wonder if we see situations like that now by saying, hey, Team A beat Team B, but Team B is ahead of Team A because Team A's losses are that much worse than Team B's. I know that gets kind of confusing, a little bit messy, but that is something that I'm watching out for with this updated metric of the college ball playoff that I think could be a real thing. Again, there's going to be controversy to some degree this year. There always is. And especially when you expand the field out to 12, we obviously hope that this time around South Carolina is at least not on the outside looking in and not having to be a part of said controversy. So we'll see, but that's a new way that the college ball playoff is looking at record strength, who you play, who you lose to, who you beat, all those kind of things. So we'll see how that plays out when the ratings start coming out in early November. That'll do it for the halftime show. Appreciate Jack Belcher for hanging out with us. We'll be live tomorrow at the Game Summer Golf Classic, sponsored by Krager Showrooms, formerly the Nest and the Vista, out at Charwood Golf Club in West Columbia. See you then. Post-game show with Jay and Terry coming up next here on The Game.